Welcome to the Needy and Normal podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Levering, mom, wife, and transition life coach. After hours of coaching and learning from my own life, one thing is clear: meeting your needs is essential for a better life. Here, we'll talk about your needs and not only learn to accept them, but also tend to them without guilt. Let's get needy because it's normal. Sometimes change is disappointing. That's just reality. But what also comes with change being disappointing is your right to hope, your ability to maintain having hope or faith or a belief in something good. I'm going to walk you through facing change that you really aren't excited about. This is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to be real, we're going to be a little bit positive, and both are good and normal. So we're going to normalize facing change that we're not happy about, and we're also going to figure out how to maintain our hope while being realistic, because kind of that's how I roll, to be honest. I am a very hopeful, very positive, very optimistic person. That's how I coach, but I'm also very realistic. I don't tend to sugarcoat things. I seriously just sat down with a new client yesterday and I said, listen, you're about to go through a pretty tough transition. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty, but good for you for staying with it. And to be honest, the number one question that I always ask everybody when they sit across from me or we're on Zoom or on a phone call, they've bought in to this coaching thing, right? They realize this is what I need. This is what I want to try and do. This is feeling right to me. When you're at that ready point, when you're at the starting line of something, there's already something you've accepted. And so the question I ask, and I'm usually faced with the same answer, is, do you believe in the outcome you seek? Do you believe in yourself? Do you have some glimmer of confidence in your ability to get through this? Do you believe that the vision we talk about, we always talk about what's your outcome, your ideal outcome, your vision. Do you believe it? Do you believe it's possible? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes, I'm hopeful. I have hope. That is so powerful. So even if you're facing something challenging, difficult, disappointing, you name it, it doesn't mean your hope has to disappear. And hope can be an incredible tool, an incredible motivator to not just keep you positive, right? Sometimes positive's tough, but at least it can keep you believing in something good or better, or even just as simple as believing that it's going to be okay. So if you're listening to this right now and what you need most today is just to hear the words and feel the feels that you're going to be okay, even as you face something hard, even if you're disappointed in a change that has happened, it's going to be okay. And a lot of that has to do with your own confidence, your own trust in yourself, and knowing that the one thing you can control is yourself. So I'm going to touch on a couple of things and a couple ways that you can latch onto and accept a change even when it's difficult, and some ways for you to maintain your hope and having faith and belief that things are going to be okay. Going through a change, however big or however small it may be, it can be scary. It can feel weird. It can feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it's exciting, but it can be any number of emotions. And let me just tell you right now, it is normal to feel all of those emotions. You don't have to push them away. You don't, especially if the strongest one is fear. Sometimes we immediately are scared by something. We feel that fear, and our initial reaction is push it away. Don't look at it. Don't deal with it. I don't want to see it. I don't believe it's happening, right? That's a little bit of denial too, but it still comes from fear. It's a very, very strong emotion. And yet still, we don't have to look away. We don't have to ignore it. I've said this before. I will continue to say it. Fear especially. Fear is an indicator. It's not a direction. It's not meant to repel us forward or backwards, up or down, whatever it is. It's not a direction. We're not meant to necessarily follow it, but it is telling us something, right? So that's all of our emotions. Whatever emotion you are feeling, especially the first emotion, it is telling you a story. One of the first things you can do when you're facing a change that you're not loving is let the emotions wash over you. They are like waves. They will come and they will go, but you're allowed to visit with them. You're allowed to learn from them. Rest assured, you don't have to figure it out immediately. You do not have to overcome anything immediately. It's okay to be patient with yourself. I have a client who taught me this, and I like it. I think it makes sense. It's real. When something is upsetting, you get a dose of bad news. When something changes that you're not happy is changing, live in it. Give yourself, he says, give it 36 hours. He calls it 36 hours of pain. Ever since he told this to me, I've really thought about this. If we give ourselves a little bit of a time limit, right? Like, I'm allowed to sit in these emotions. I'm allowed to be pissed off. I'm allowed to feel this pain. I'm allowed to be mad. You are allowed and entitled to your emotions. Give yourself 36 hours. Or if you need more, give yourself more. It's okay, truly. But then we can get to this point of trying to accept. And acceptance doesn't mean that you're okay with what's happening. It doesn't mean that whatever disappointed you magically doesn't disappoint you anymore. It just means that it is what it is. And to be honest, that's one of the most powerful things you can use. It is what it is. And it doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you disagree. It just means you accept that it is. So once you feel your emotions, are patient with yourself, you start the journey of processing the new, whatever this thing is that you're having to deal with. Sometimes it's as simple as plans changing. You had plans to go out to dinner with a friend, and then something came up and you had to deal with that. Not that that's ever completely simple, but for this circumstance, the thing changed. So immediately you're pissed, you're sad, you're all the emotions. Feel all of that. Be patient with that. Then you can get to a place of, well, this is happening. I can't make it stop. I can't change the past. It is what it is. Then you get to choose your next action. You get to decide how you want to respond. Because remember, you're in control of you. And truly, it is the only thing you're actually in control of. But this also works when you get some devastating news. Perhaps there's loss in your family or in your world in some way that hits you, impacts you so deeply. Perhaps you learn of an illness diagnosis. This is why acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with it. There are going to be changes in your life that deeply impact you, that feel very heavy, dark, upsetting, all the things, right? You still get to go through those steps of feeling all the feelings. And then because reality bites sometimes, and reality is going to stay with us no matter what, we do have to accept. It is what it is. Now what? There are 4 things that you can make use of when you are entering the part of a change that is the beginning of the transition, which is the process. Now, if you go back to the transition episode, the change is the event and the thing that happens, right? And then transition is the process of embracing the change, navigating through the change, okay? So when the transition begins, you have 4 things that are already available to you. I could say 5 if we include what I already said, which is you are in control of yourself. You always have control in some way because you are in control of you, no matter what. How you respond, how you react, how you allow yourself to feel, how you allow yourself to maintain hope, which is number 1. This belief that everything's going to be okay. Hope that you're going to make it through. Confidence in yourself that you're going to be okay. That all is involved in having hope, or call it faith, or call it having a positive belief of some kind. That's available to you immediately. You also have an opportunity. Sometimes my clients look at me silly when they're upset about something, and I say, well, here's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn something. Everything, if you take this perspective, which is the other thing, you get to learn different perspectives. But everything in life comes with a lesson of some kind. Think about it. This is how I handle upsetting things. This is the first thing I personally go to is what am I to learn from this? I even say it out loud to my husband sometimes. I'll have the frustrating moment with my son. One of my biggest disappointments that I've had to deal with is when the morning goes south, right? When instead of getting up in the morning and everything goes smoothly, the kids fight. And I respond really poorly to my children fighting. That's something I'm working on personally. Immediately, I try and snag my own attention. I'm in control of myself and I want to have hope and I want to believe in something good. I immediately think, what am I to learn from this? I've even said this out loud to my husband. Something happens that I'm really pissed about. I'll be like, okay, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to find the lesson here. But I can't learn a lesson until I have allowed myself to feel the emotions, visit with the emotions. So there is a bit of an order here in processing and facing change. So when you're at that place where you have allowed yourself to feel the feels, and the feelings come and go, right? That's part of it. They don't just come right in the beginning of you facing this thing and then they flow away. They're like waves because they will come and go. But one of the first things you can do is look at it as an opportunity to learn something. And whether it's about yourself or about others or how you manage things or how you get to think of a different perspective and learn different ways to accept things or figure out a way to show up differently, whatever the disappointment is, you can learn from it. So see it as an opportunity. And I already mentioned it, but it also is an opportunity not just to learn something, but to see things from a different perspective. So perhaps this is a decision that was made that's out of your hands. Now, because you won't be able to go change it, perhaps you can try and see from a different perspective. This is a good lesson to teach our younger generation too, is seeing things from different angles. Sometimes perspective and a shift in perspective is exactly what we need to be able to navigate through something difficult and be okay with it. And that still goes right back to having that hope or that belief, that confidence in yourself that everything's going to be okay. I think the magic of disappointment, the magic of hard changes, things that we are not welcoming, that we're not about initially or ever, but the magic is oftentimes in the connections that we can make with people in our lives, especially if you're going through something difficult together. My family, for example, just learned of some pretty upsetting medical news of one of our family members, and it sucks. It sucks. It's hard. It's disappointing. No, we don't want to believe it's happening. It's not something we want to accept, but we are connecting. We are showing up for each other. We are being supportive. That's a magical thing. And it sucks that something kind of awful can bring people together, but at least it does that. If it's for nothing, that's almost harder. And that might be my belief that I'm putting out there. But when something disappointing happens, something changes that we don't want and don't expect, there is magic in being able to connect with others going through the same thing, or someone who's been through the same thing, or just being able to support each other. Even if you don't know what to do or what to say, at least being like, hey, I'm here. Yeah, me too. Let's get through this together. Going through something difficult by yourself is so lonely. There's no need for that. And let me add the power of making new connections. That is also available to you. And lastly, when you're facing something that disappoints you, it's also an opportunity, yes, I'm using that word on purpose, to make new choices. Sometimes when we're facing something that we don't like, we tend to resort to an old pattern or an old coping mechanism or an old belief. And that doesn't have to be that way. When we're facing something difficult, it is an opportunity to grow. It is an opportunity to reflect and think, how can I choose things differently? How can I process things differently? How can I choose something that possibly is better? There are opportunities living in the negative and the hard and the difficult and the challenging and the downright shitty and disappointing. There are always opportunities. And I know that sounds weird, but this circles back to having hope. And it's so powerful. Because if we can see ourselves through something, you're okay. The fact is, if you can move through something difficult, if you can find your way through it, isn't that proof of how capable you are? Isn't that proof of how amazing you are at managing through something difficult? Oh my goodness. And if you're able to move through something difficult, you will most definitely be really good at moving through something good. And hear me out on that. If something good happens that's also kind of wild and scary and overly exciting and we don't know what to do and we're getting overwhelmed, these steps actually work for that as well. So let's review. When you initially get disappointing news or you're facing a disappointing change, you can latch onto your own hope, a positive belief, or at least the confidence in yourself and your ability to get through things, knowing that you will be okay. You also can latch on to the fact that you are in control of yourself. You are in control of how you respond or react. You always have that available to you. You also can feel your emotions. Give yourself permission for that. No matter how many you have, no matter how big they are, feel them. It's okay. It's normal. It's a normal part of the human experience. And be patient with yourself. At some point, yes, you're going to have to get to a point where you turn a page and figure out how to deal with this. But in the meantime, you can be patient with yourself. If you take a little bit longer to move through your emotions, your initial emotions, that's okay. Then you get to that place where maybe it's an active decision rather than a natural thing you arrive to, which is acceptance. Remember, it doesn't mean you're okay with the thing. It doesn't mean you accept and allow it to be right. But it does mean you accept that it just is. It is what it is. Can't change the past. If it's a decision especially that's out of your hands, you can't change that. So it is what it is. Accepting it. Then you get to decide how to respond. And here are the 4 things, remember, that we get to rely on. Your hope, having that positive belief. And here are the opportunities you get to find too. An opportunity to learn something. An opportunity to see a new perspective or shift your own perspective. An opportunity to find the magic in connecting with others, whether it's your own support system, creating your own support system, connecting with new support systems or people. But that's the magic part, right? And then the opportunity to grow, reflect, and make new choices. Come away from old patterns. That is part of the human experience too. All of those things are available to you when you're facing something that isn't welcome, that you're not excited about. Disappointment's going to happen. You can't run away from it, can't avoid it. That's part of life. But you do get to handle it and manage it in a way that is okay. And a way that you get to be proud of. And a way that even if it's messy, you get to notice is normal. So I hope these were helpful for you. Please pass this episode along if you know of someone who's facing something disappointing right now. This might just be the thing they need to hear. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to believe that you will be, no matter what. Your needs matter because you matter. Take care and be kind to yourself. Thank you for listening to the Needy and Normal podcast. If you liked this episode, please pass it along to someone you care about. If you're interested in coaching together, visit ablifecoaching.com, where you can book your own personal life assessment session or grab my free resource, the 7-step formula to moving through a transition with confidence. See you next week.